Yes!
Hello. Only 52% of eligible voters voted in this month's British Columbian provincial election. This is completely disheartening and unacceptable, as it takes a tremendous amount of responsibility to be a citizen in a healthy democracy. Sadly, as a whole, we have failed to hold our politicians responsible. If truth be told, as a collective group, we are apathetic, brainwashed, self-centered, and living in the low energy vibration of fear. We have become so lazy that 85% of these voters appear to trust corporate media's lies as truth. Television news is not an accurate reflection of reality. We must seek out independent sources. 85% of the voters in this election voted for who they believed was the lesser of two evils. We voted for the Liberals and the NDP, fascism and fascism light. Have we completely lost our minds? So, we're getting there. So, how can so many of us not understand that this will only guarantee a continuation of this insane status quo, which has locked us into the dire position that we are in today? I voted for an independent, and I hope you did as well. Moving on to the topic of the day. We are gathered here today to show our contempt for one of the most powerful and despised corporations our world has ever witnessed, Monsanto. Monsanto is a publicly traded multinational agricultural and biotechnology corporation. It is the leading producer of genetically modified genes, seeds, synthetic growth hormones, herbicides, and insecticides, including poisons such as DDT, PCBs, and Agent Orange. Monsanto also practices biopiracy, the theft of indigenous knowledge of nature for profit without permission from and with little or no compensation or recognition to the indigenous peoples themselves. As you know, there are numerous controversies surrounding GMOs on several levels, including whether making them is ethical, whether food produced with them is safe, whether such food should be labeled, and if so, how, whether agricultural biotech is needed to address world hunger now or in the future, and more specifically to GM crops, intellectual property, environmental effects of GM crops on native and organic crop. Another frightening aspect of genetic engineering is the Terminator seed technology. These seeds produce plants that have sterile seeds, preventing farmers from planting the seeds they harvest, requiring farmers to repurchase seed for every planting. And as I'm sure most of you believe, this is a monumental crime against life itself. Yes! I know that many of you have been watching the skies these last years in search of the geoengineering experiment known as chemtrails. It is believed that one of the main chemicals being sprayed from some of these airplanes is aluminum. Well, lo and behold, if Monsanto isn't patenting genes and seeds resistant to aluminum. Aluminum does turn up in higher amounts than normal in some autopsy studies on Alzheimer's patients, but not in all. However, it's a win-win situation for Monsanto. Hope to create a monopoly on food production, and as an added bonus, continue to dumb down and sicken the general population. More fluoride in my drinking water, please. Yeah. Population! It certainly appears that Monsanto is in bed with the United Nations and their Agenda 21. This global fascist agenda ultimately calls for the continued consolidation of wealth and power and the centralization of global governance.
They want you dead!
The influential globalist and war criminal Henry Kissinger stated the following: who controls the food supply controls the people. Who controls the energy can control whole continents. Who controls money can control the world. Corporate media are reluctant to critically analyze multinational corporations like Monsanto for fear of losing their massive advertising revenue. This is self-censorship, and the consequences are having a dire effect on citizens' abilities to understand the greater implications on issues like the ownership and control of our food supply. So who is responsible for the safety of GMO foods? It seems that no one is. Philip Angel, Monsanto's former director of corporate communications, said, quote, Monsanto should not have to vouchsafe the safety of biotech foods. Our interest is in selling as much of it as possible. Assuring its safety is the FDA's job. Sure. However, the FDA, which is the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, has stated that, quote, ultimately it is the food producer who is responsible for assuring safety. The fox is clearly in charge of this massive and deadly conspiracy. Moreover, in this Orwellian nightmare, in 2009, in a classic revolving door move between corporate America and political America, President Barack Obama appointed former Monsanto Vice President and head lobbyist Michael Taylor as Deputy Commissioner for the FDA. The board tasked with regulating Tyler's own industry.
Monsanto doesn't change your genes!
And if that is not enough, the U.S. has recently passed laws to protect Monsanto from future court battles if and when their frankenfoods proves to be dangerous for consumption. A recent study found that 1 in 5 children may have a mental disorder of some kind. If true, I believe it is due to the poisoning of our food, air, and water supplies. Collectively, we are being dumbed down, sickened, and toxified by the scientific totalitarianism reminiscent of Aldous Huxley's dystopian novel, Brave New World. Due in part to the pathetic turnout at this latest provincial election earlier this month, not to mention the ill-advised voting choices made by the vast majority who did vote, I am not feeling overly optimistic about the future today. This does not mean that I have given up or have quit in this battle for truth and accountability. But it does mean that far too many of us are blissfully asleep to the greater realities of our time. These are the very people we need to wake up to get them involved in this seemingly lopsided battle. Our shared future will depend on countless possibilities coming together and not coming together. We have come here today for many related issues, but all of us came with an overflowing of love in our hearts. If, when later you are feeling overwhelmed and hopeless, try to remember and imitate this magic and light you are experiencing now. This solidarity of love and compassion. I want to conclude this short talk on Monsanto and our food production systems on a productive note. Here is a short list of simple and effective actions we can take. The most effective thing we can do is to vote with our grocery budget. Don't forget that grocery stores are in the business of making money, and they will stock their shelves with what sells. Avoid buying products of questionable quality and safety. This includes fast food restaurants and frozen food products. Also, try keeping away foods that have their own television commercial and mascots. Learn to grow a garden in match with your capabilities. Container and vertical gardening is very effective. An important option is to join seed saving and trading groups. This will help protect the biodiversity of our local watersheds. I want to thank everyone for coming out today and to the organizers who helped make this day happen. Love and respect to you.
60 seconds, it'll be fun.
Okay, everybody, that concludes our speakers for today.